So Undecember, here's my full thoughts on the game. Made a little slideshow thingy. So starting with the pros, first I'll start with the boss fights. The boss fights in this game are honestly pretty superb. It's probably the strongest point of the game, and I think it knows that. It really focuses on them. So the act bosses are the best in any RPG by far for like acts. So they're pretty engaging and challenging, and you kind of need to think about your gear before you just want to blast them. You make sure your levels are up to par, and your gear actually mattered. So those are really good, but the 8-man raid bosses left something to be desired. I mean, they were pretty good. Like, they were still like good, well-designed bosses, but from what I'd expect from the act bosses, which are actually like pretty dang challenging, they were pretty easy. To be fair, they're mostly early game content. There was one at level 30, then 50, and then 70. Killed 30 and 50 really easily. 70, we didn't have enough people at that level, and it had a lot of HP, but mechanically it seemed pretty easy and tame. So if we tried again now with more people in our guild up to level, it would probably go down. So there's also this boss rush mode called Void Rift. There's 90 bosses in total. It's a pretty good challenge. I think it reuses a lot of act bosses, and which were good fights. So, and then in the higher tiers you go, it'll stack them more on top of each other, so you'll fight like boss at the same time. Think kind of like invitations from PoE, where you have a bunch of bosses all at the same time. So I think that is the main thing you're like kind of pushing your gear for right now in the game, is to get good gear to be able to do those. However, boss fights, there is some desync in the game. I don't know if it's the game itself, some issue there, or it's the server's lagging, if there's not enough like stability there or whatever is going on, but it is noticeable. Some projectiles you'll like clearly not be in it, and then you'll get hit. And my ping to the server is pretty good. It was like 40 or something. So the free-to-play experience honestly was pretty good. Give it an A. So I played for like 75 hours. I didn't hit any paywalls. Never felt like the game expected you to buy anything besides stash tabs, but I think that's completely fair. Honestly, I wouldn't have even known there was any like pay-to-win stuff, which obviously everybody knows there is in the game. I wouldn't have even known if I had never like looked in the shop. It doesn't throw it in your face really. Maybe the like battle pass stuff, you claim stuff from there, but it's completely ignorable. So I went like complete free to play for the most part. In the end, I did spend $10 on a cosmetic armor set. However, it did come with a little tiny bit of bag space, 25 extra slots. It didn't do anything, really. Like, it was really not noticeable. All it did was let me delay dumping my inventory like a little bit longer, and then it caught up, so I had to keep dumping it like normally. So stat space, completely free to play, is manageable. I did it. I would not say it was fun to deal with, but it is manageable. It is doable. I don't recommend it. You can do it. It is much better than PoE without buying any stashes. Like, PoE is not manageable without stashes. If you get to the end game in PoE, you're gonna run out of space for sure. This game, you can do it. You will not run out of space if you manage your stuff properly. PoE, you absolutely will. So yeah, that's one plus for this game in the complete free-to-play section. So if you do get stashes, the pricing is pretty comparable to PoE with what you get. I hear a lot of things going around that's like, oh, $3 million for all the whatever. Yeah, that's true, but you don't really need all that. Honestly, all you really need is the currency stash tab, which is called Essence Stash Tab in Undecember. That's all you need in terms of stashes, and then you'd be perfectly fine. which is about $25. I really would say you don't need anything more than that because I was doing just good with no stashes, and 90% of my space taken was from random currency shards. So that's that. So there's pet auto loot, but it is very easy to upkeep with selling gear on the auction house. So it is 150 rubies, which is the it's the auction house currency basically, or you can convert the premium currency to it. But you sell things on the auction house, you get rubies, and then you can buy some stuff in the store with them. So basically, auto loot is 150 rubies for 1 week, and then you get the auto loot for a week. And basically, you drop 1 unique, you have the auto loot for a week, at least right now as of this video. It is super easy to upkeep. You drop a unique, you craft some gold statue things, which you get pretty commonly. Chaos elements, you sell those, you're like set instantly for the week. It is super easy, you get it in a few maps. Like, it's really easy. The only issue would be if you're slow leveling, if you do not get out of leveling before your pet auto loot expires, you're probably not getting that auto loot for free until you get to maps. So you have to keep that in mind. So the top ladder players, from everything I'd heard, at least most of the top ladder players, like the rank 1 guy, for a while, from people were saying that it was only stash tabs are basically free to play. So I don't know. That's just hearsay. I don't really didn't factor that in here. Really, it's just a little point there for that. Mapping. So what did I say? P2P Experience gets an A. So mapping, it's pretty decent. It's not bad. It's nothing crazy. It's a pretty standard system. There's some interesting stuff there. So the maps in this game are like cards, and they all have tiers, and I believe it goes up to tier 10 for the maps itself. And then your map device actually has its own level, which gives you some bonuses. It lets you, I think, let me check real quick here. It's just like kill XP, drop chance, and adds monster level. And there's a few other bonuses you get, but it's not super important. And you can check if you care enough, but it's not like it's nothing really interesting. It's just like flat chances for like drop chance or whatever. So then when you hit certain levels on the map device, you go and fight a boss, though oddly enough, they're kind of lackluster compared to other bosses of the game. You'd think those would probably be the cooler ones, but they're not. They're pretty lame, but it's alright. And then when you kill those, you get some cool loot. You get like an influence gear too, which is pretty neat. Yeah. So it's a semi-hardcore mapping experience. If you die, you will lose the map unless you use a res scroll, which is an unfortunate thing. But the way I was playing, I basically wasn't using any res scrolls. Maybe I'd slap one on, but basically if you die, you lose the map. So if you have a bunch of excess maps, which you probably will, a cool thing you can do is, if you have a rare map, like a yellow tier, you can feed your lower grade maps, or even equal, but you feed your excess maps to it and it will give it extra monster levels up to +5, I believe. So you can really pump the monster levels and juice your maps that way. It's a pretty interesting system. So there is influence maps too. I think there's like 10 different influence types. They can spawn randomly, I think. And there's also items you can use to make the maps influenced. And then the way it works, it spawns some mobs, and then it also spawns some boss portals occasionally, which you can fight, and then you go in and kill a boss, and it drops some influence loot. It's pretty cool. And then There's zones, which you can kind of see up here. Hira, Unos, Numera, Lyad, Memory of Stars, Priel, whatever. All that stuff, those are the zones, and they have their own like kind of drop table things. Primarily the charms in this game. And each charm has certain bonuses, and the bonuses align with the zone it drops in. However, it's kind of weird because there's these zones, but there's no specific way to target them as far as I know, which is pretty bad, not a great thing. It's not a huge negative, but it's kind of not good. So you have even more mapping bonuses that you can upgrade. They're not particularly interesting. It's just like +%. It's it's random stuff. +% plus XP, plus drop chance of certain things, plus loot goblin chance. It's a special currency you get from enemies, daily missions, and other places. And then the auto loot pet, you can just blast the maps. It'll pick everything up, no matter how fast you go. So that's pretty nice. And you can adjust your loot filter with it, which is also good. So that's a B for mapping. Crafting system / items. So crafting gear is fairly satisfying in the game. It's pretty good. It's essentially the PoE crafting system, but modified. Can't really go wrong with that. It's pretty similar. Some differences in it, but it's good. It's interesting. So the game is generous when it drops materials. I always had crafting materials. When I felt like I needed to upgrade my gear, I had plenty of stuff to upgrade. I'm sitting on a large excess of stuff. You get quite a few from each map. It's pretty good, well-rounded. Item mods are not super interesting before you get influence gear. The pool of mods in this game is pretty low, at least for non-influence gear. So it's just like really basic stuff. Raz life, kill XP, gold, rarity. It's not a ton of mods, and which makes it pretty easy to roll gear, I've found. At least like pre-influence gear. So yeah. In this game, unique items are quite rare. I got about 10 throughout all my playtime, which is about 75 hours. And they even buffed them once. But there's a good side of this. There isn't a ton of trash uniques, and there seems to be, most of them are pretty good, and they will sell for a good chunk of currency on the auction house, which is good for a free-to-play player. Lets you cover a bunch of stuff. And then if you like collecting items, they have like a collection bonus in the game, and it's called the compendium. You can stick like basically everything in the game, all skills, all items, whatever, and that gives you bonus stats, which is pretty cool. You can set a condition for items when you're crafting, and it'll auto repeat it, so you don't have to keep clicking. Same thing with fusing things, so you can like set it like get a 6 link or redo it until it gets a 6 link. So same thing with the color. You can put the colors you want. It'll keep doing it over and over. So you just save your clicking finger. And then 6 linking, you have a 1500 fusing pity timer, in which it guarantees you a 6 link, which is pretty neat too. So B+ for the system overall. It's not really life-changing. It's not anything super innovative, but that's okay. I don't mind when games reuse other things if they do them right, and this game did it right. So the skills / gem or rune system, the gems are called runes in this game, or the skills, whatever, active skills. So I think the skill grid thing, this thing in the corner down here, is actually pretty interesting. Makes you think about your skill placement and your links. You can reuse links with other types of skills, which I haven't seen in the game yet. Maybe I'm pretty sure it's original, I'm not sure. So that's pretty cool. And you gotta make sure you're like efficiently using your space, and you can fit out everything you need to fit in. It is pretty cool. And then there's these 3 buff things at the top, and then you put these rune stones in, which buffs your runes down here, and it has 1 guaranteed roll, which is the only one I used. It's like +1 level, basically. There's a few other ones, but for my build, it's just plus levels the best. And then it also gives you a random roll, which is another condition. If you meet the condition, it'll give you like a bonus damage or something, which is pretty neat. So what it does is it highlights a certain square here on the zone, on the grid. So if they, for example, this is whirlwind skill right here. If it was highlighted here, it would get +1. So you need to make sure you could fit your whirlwind there. It kind of makes you adjust where you have things lined up, and you'll have to figure out the optimal way to put your skills. It's pretty cool. Something else I like is they have special skills that are not like buyable from any NPCs, can't buy it at an auction house. You can only get it from synthesizing at your auction alchemy table, or I believe there's also some boxes you can get through other means. I think you can pay to win it, but I'm not sure. I didn't need to. But besides the pay to win factor there, I like the idea of rare skills that you can't just get from an NPC or whatever. You have to drop it or get it somehow through other means. I think that's pretty cool. It was interesting in this game. Yeah. So you can upgrade the rarity of your gems for extra effects too. So you can like get a magic gem. You can make your main skill magic or rare, and it gives it extra effects or damage. And it's a pretty good grind system to try and unlock the rare ones that you may not have unlocked. And you have to, like, basically you'll level up a gem, and then you can sell that gem for shards to make another gem magic. Then you can reroll the magics to get a different type of magic one. It's a pretty good system. I give that an A. Build diversity. It's a pretty common opinion in this game that the build diversity is really bad. Everybody only sees Toxic Flame. And that was because it's just really good early game. Falls off later in the maps and is like outdone by other things. It's just good early because it's like dot. People don't know boss mechanics. You can just apply the dot and run around. But I don't think it is the best. I don't think it is even really super good. I think its damage was quite lower. The damage felt lower than the build I personally made. But the benefit, it is a dot. So at the time of writing this, there was 13 different builds in the top 50 players with public profiles, which is a pretty good thing, pretty good amount, if you ask me. So it's not like 13 builds and then all of them are toxic. All the rest of them are Toxic Flame. The other like 37. It's like it's pretty evenly spread out. Maybe leaning a little bit towards Toxic Flame, but it was a pretty good ratio of different builds. I was actually pretty impressed. I thought it was gonna be worse. So yeah. Though that being said, melee is in a rough spot. None of the top 50 people are melee, if I remember correctly. There's like 1 or 2 good skills, like Fissure, I believe, is pretty good. But I mean, honestly, it's a common issue in games, especially like ARPGs or like boss-heavy mechanical games. Range is just going to be better because your range, you're not in his face. Gives you more time to react, and you can keep DPS up more. So yeah, not really much to say there besides melee is melee. So I give build diversity an A. Ease of respecking. So before you get to maps, all respecking is 100% completely free. You can just do it at will. So once you're in an endgame though, then it costs a little bit of gold. You can see the prices here. I mean, that means nothing to you if you don't play. But that is not that much gold. It's pretty low. So it's still really easy to respec when you're in mapping. Another cool thing is, if you want to switch skills, since your links are on your skill, the game allows you to transfer all of your links and levels from one skill to another for some currency. And it scales with the amount of links on the gem for how much it will cost to transfer the links to one to another. But it seems fairly reasonable. It is kind of high for 6 link, but later on you should be able to get that kind of money to transfer your 6 link relatively easily. I think that's a pretty cool system. Being able to transfer your gems around is pretty cool, and it is free before you get to endgame as well. So here's the mid stuff. Like stuff I'm either indifferent to or not really sure which direction I want to lean. It's like the pretty middle of the pack stuff. Not great, not horrible. Pretty open to opinion here. So the guild system. I'd like to see them do more with it. It could easily turn into pro. I mean, it's definitely not a con, but it's just pretty mediocre all around. It's a low member limit. It's a common theme in like Asian produced games like Lost Ark. Low guild member limit. I don't know why, but it is pretty common. I'm not a huge fan of daily donation kind of things, which is also common in games like this, where you donate some gold and some other stuff every day. Not a huge fan of it to level the guild up. Guild buffs are pretty cool. There's a lot of them. There's like damage, hit rate, basically every stat you can think of, and drop rates and kill XP. It's pretty interesting. Maybe some leaderboards or something to do more things with the guild would be cool. I feel like that's something no ARPG has a good guild system. That'd be a pretty good thing for this guild to implement. I give it a C. Potions, I'm pretty indifferent to this. They have auto potion use, so they just kind of become like your life and mana regen, and you can always upkeep these. It does kind of open an interesting build path option in your tree. You can kind of invest into potion effect, which is kind of cool. But it effectively just is your regen. And then there's buff potions in this game. You can craft them or you can buy some from the raid vendors. I do not like consumable buff potions. I end up just hoarding them. I do not like them, but I'm overall indifferent to the system they use in this game. And you can set like the HP limit that the potion pops and then it'll use. And then there's cooldown on it. So since you can choose the HP it pops at, it essentially just becomes life regen. Not much reason to make new characters. But the story is super long. I didn't get to that yet. That's a con, but the story is very long. Is very easy to respec. There's no seasons. There does not seem to be any reason to really make new characters unless you're like giga sweating, min-maxing to get more daily stuff done. I think you could do more characters, but it's not even that much. So yeah. So yeah, no seasons. I have that in mid because I don't know how it'll play out in this game because it is a little different in this game. The overall feel is a little different. It's a little more long-term feeling. I think it's mostly a con. I think if I had to put it somewhere, I'd definitely go in a con. So it's a D. I mean, D is pretty much a con, but I think time will have to play out before really making a decision about this. So there's like soft resets when they add more acts later on. So the acts they add later on are like harder than maps, is from what people have said. Like it's really hard. It takes endgame characters to clear, and then when they add the acts, your map device XP resets, but your like character stays the same. So I don't really know how I feel about that. Could be interesting. It could be like it could kill the longevity of the game. I'm not sure. So There's a bunch of different ladders though, which reset weekly. There's an XP ladder, DPS ladder, and chooses like random skills for people to build around, which is kind of cool. There's an axe speedrun ladder, which is kind of cool. Boss rush ladder. So there's like a hardcore ladder, but it's weird. You don't make a hardcore character. It's just a ladder, which every character is on the hardcore ladder until you die. So it's kind of interesting. So there's technically hardcore, but not really. Hardcore would be insanely hard in this game anyways, so I'm not really upset about that. So the straight cons here, pay-to-win features, obviously a big con here for a lot of people. Personally, for me, I'm indifferent. I like really wouldn't have noticed it's there if I didn't like get bombarded with questions, if I hadn't peeked in the cash shop just to like take a look because I was curious. It's not in your face at all. Like there's not really any pop-ups that appear like, hey, buy this. It's pretty low key, but you can basically buy anything you want. It is about as pay to win as you want it to be, but it does not have any paywalls or anything like that. So I want to just make that clear. Like don't think that there's going to be a paywall or anything like that. From what I could tell, yeah. So you can buy any gear off the auction house for the premium currency you buy with real money. So you can get basically anything through that, any type of gear you want, whatever. It's just straight up. Can buy resurrection scrolls straight up. Can buy higher tier magic and rare skills straight up. You can basically buy anything you want. Any linking gem currency. That's pretty irrelevant because you get more than enough from the game, but you can get more crafting slots, auction house selling slots, gold, pretty much anything you want. Like if you want to buy something in the game, you can buy it if you want to ruin the game for yourself. And yeah, at this point, you might as well load up a hacking like application or whatever and just hack the game because it's basically the same thing. That's why I don't really understand it, but if you want to do it, the option's there. I think most people that complain about this are going to complain because the game is just really hard as a baseline, and they will complain that it's pay to win because they're bad. But that I do understand people who don't want to play it because of pay to win, but in my opinion, the game is really good as a base. So spin that out there, but pay to win does exist. Not a good thing. Acts take a very long time. Probably the longest acts in an ARPG. However, I think they're well done. I think they're good. They're fun to play. It didn't really feel like a slog, but they were like, it took a long time. It took me like 30 hours. And I'm probably faster than most people. So the reason that is, for some reason the game does not let you keep up its zone levels, like, at all. If you just play normally like you would an ARPG, you'll be like 20 levels under the final boss, and you'll be struggling. And you need to refarm previous zones, which I didn't really mind, but after a certain point, it's too much. Maybe if it was took half as long, it would be much better. But even like the fastest people on the leaderboard is like 15 hours, like the absolute fastest people. Or even I think it was 15 hours for Act 5. I can check real quick here. It is. Oh no, it's okay. It is 15 hours for the whole game. Okay. So lots of translation errors in this. It's like a clear F score. So normally it wouldn't be a huge deal, but there is a lot of them, and there's a lot of them that really impede your knowledge of what it's trying to tell you. Like your understanding is just out the window. So it's basically on everything in the game: passive nodes, some skills, damage types. Example, there's 2 types of poison in the game. Oh, I don't even know how to explain this completely. They're both called poison, but they're different things. There's like one that's a status effect poison, but it's still ticks damage, and then there's another type of poison. Like for example, the skill that everybody uses called toxic, or like most people use, or a lot of people use, called toxic flame. It's poison, it has stacks, but this node right here, +5 max poison stacks, it does not give you +5 max poison stacks on that skill. It's for a different type of poison, which is also just called poison. So a lot of people are getting baited by this node. Luckily, it's easy to respec, and I don't know. It's weird. There's a lot of weird things like that. Just another example, damage upon spell. I mean, that's pretty easy to figure out what it means, but there's a lot of weird translation errors, a little of weird things not written clearly, and it adds up, and it's kind of annoying. So the Zodiac system, or the passive tree, it's really basic. It is very basic. It's like you basically click your damage type, you click some tankiness, and that's it. There is a little bit of, the further on you get, there's a little bit more choice, but especially early on, up to like at least level 75, there's really not much choice. So you cannot respec individual nodes either. If you mess up or you want to test something, you have to respec the entire tree every time, and then you have to re-put in every node, which also gets old. Stat distribution, strength, dex, int, that stuff right here. It's kind of weird. Strength and dex are really good. Strength gives you life and armor, I believe. Dex give you accuracy and dodge rate, and dodge is really good. Int is pretty useless. I only used it to get to my stat requirement. It gives you mana and barrier. Really didn't feel good. So maybe later in the game, or even like if you got uniques, you can make a barrier build, but it seems not very good. So yeah, the translation errors in this, a lot of nodes that are kind of messed up because of that. And yeah. Currency shard overload. The game floods you with currency shards and fragments and really quickly fills your bag up. Presume it's to make you buy more stash and inventory space. Gotta make money, I guess. And like for example, there's 2 different types of currency, but they're the same currency. So like for example, this blue thing right here, there could be this one, then there could be another one right next to it, but it's a different type, so they won't stack together. They'll just be right next to each other, not stacking. And it's called like exclusive currency, and it's really annoying. Technically, the exclusive currency, you can convert some of them to it, and it has higher stack sizes, so you could try and kind of do that. Like you see right here, this one's kind of glowing. This is an exclusive one. This right here is not glowing. That is not an exclusive. These 2 would not stack together. It's really weird. So that's a F right there. You can see these are my 2 stash tabs on one of my characters. And yeah, it's full of currency shards. So yeah. Defenses, something seems off with them. The defense bounce like definitely seems a little bit off here. There's something that will always delete you. In a lot of cases, your resistance, it can be maxed, and it feels like you still get one shot by that damage type from something that doesn't really feel like it should damage you to do all your HP. It's kind of weird. This kind of promotes glass canning a bit. And yeah. It's fine in a lot of cases, like big bosses that like you should be dodging their big attacks that should one-shot you, but sometimes there's things that seem like they aren't like really big attacks and you just die. It could be just bad, but something there feels off. Like, for example, even the life regens, something seems off there. Like, doesn't work. Like, I click a node that's like 1% of life. Regen 1% of life, like every second or something. Yeah, and it didn't add any life regen, or like added like 0.1 or something. I don't know if that's a translation error or something, but something is off there. Let's see. Server instability, there's something weird going on there too. Desync with projectiles or other attacks is really noticeable sometimes when doing a boss. You'll like clearly be out of a move and you'll get hit. I'm not sure if it's a server or if it's a game issue. Yeah. So too long didn't watch. Overall, the ARPG, this ARPG is like a very solid game. I'd say it's probably in like the top 5 ARPGs in a really long time. If you can manage to ignore the pay-to-win elements, which honestly, that's just a mental block. Like it's a mental block. Like the game is fine with them in the game. You can completely ignore them, but like there is that mental block if it's there, and it could like make you feel like you devalue your progress or something because some random guy who has no relation to you is swiping it up. But if you're not trying to play competitive, which let's be real, you're not, very few people really do. And if you are competitive and you're free to play, if you're going to be putting in the hours to be competitive, you're going to be high ranked anyways. So at the end of the day, it really is just a mental block with the pay to win stuff. And the game is very solid. I'm not sure if there's anything else. I think that is about it. I'll put together one of these for Torchlight soon in the coming days, or like in a week or something when I put enough hours. And then I'll also make a video comparing the two games directly. But for now, I think that is it.